In the shadowed halls of Whitehall Palace, on a sultry summer night in 1525, a woman's laughter echoed, sharp and teasing, as King Henry Vicar, England's golden monarch, chased her through a candlelit corridor. His heavy footsteps thudded against the stone, his breath quick with desire as he called out, "You cannot flee a king." The court, accustomed to his roguish charm, whispered of his latest obsession, Anne Boleyn, a dark-eyed siren who refused to yield. This was no mere dalliance. It was a passion that would tear England apart, topple a church and set a nation ablaze. Henry Vicar, crowned at 18 with dreams of glory, was a king ruled by his heart, and his heart was a furnace of lust. Would his unbridled desire for women, burning brighter than his crown, lead England to triumph or tragedy? In 1509, when Henry ascended the throne, England was a realm of promise. The treasury overflowed, thanks to his father's frugal reign, and the young king, tall and broad-shouldered, was a vision of Tudor might. His auburn hair gleamed under his jeweled cap, his blue eyes sparkled with mischief, and his prowess in justing drew cheers from adoring crowds. At court, minstrels sang of his virtues, and scholars hailed him as a Renaissance prince, skilled in poetry and music. But beneath the regal facade, Henry's heart pulsed with a dangerous hunger. From the moment he took the crown, his gaze wandered, lingering on the curves of silk-clad ladies, their blushes fueling his appetite. His queen, Catherine of Aragon, a Spanish princess of unwavering piety, was a model of royal duty, but her failure to produce a male heir left Henry restless, his eyes straying to every pretty face in the court. Whitehall was no mere palace, it was a stage for Henry's desires. At banquets, he danced with maids, his hands lingering on their waists as he whispered jests that sent them giggling. A king must have beauty to inspire him, he declared, his voice booming over the clink of goblets. Servants whispered of stolen kisses in rows, scented gardens of love notes slipped into delicate hands under candlelight. One evening, at a masked ball, Henry, cloaked in velvet, pulled a young lady in waiting into a shadowed alcove, his lips brushing her ear as he murmured, "You shine brighter than the stars." The court buzzed with scandal, and Catherine, praying in her private chapel, heard the whispers but held her silence, her rosary beads trembling in her hands. The nobles, loyal to their queen, exchanged wary glances. Could a king so consumed by lust steer England's destiny? By 1525, Henry's wandering heart found its true obsession, Anne Boleyn. She was no ordinary courtier. With her raven hair, almond eyes, and French-educated wit, Anne stood apart, a woman who knew her power and wielded it like a blade. Unlike the maids who melted under Henry's charm, Anne refused to be his mistress. "I will be queen or nothing," she told him, her voice cool as she glided past, leaving him breathless. Henry was ensnared, his days consumed by her presence. At Greenwich Palace, he neglected council meetings to watch her dance, her movements graceful yet provocative, her laughter a siren's call. He sent her gifts, emerald pendants, gold-embroidered gowns, his chambers a chaos of parchment scrawled with love poems. "My soul is yours," he wrote, his quill shaking as he sat by candlelight, the court asleep but his heart ablaze. One moonlit night in Hampton Court's gardens, Henry cornered Anne beneath a sprawling oak, the air heavy with the scent of roses. "Be mine," he urged, his voice thick, his hand grazing her wrist. Anne's eyes flashed with defiance. "Crown me first," she replied, slipping from his grasp, her silk gown whispering against the grass. Henry's desire burned hotter, a fire that no council or church could quench. To make Anne queen, he needed to annul his marriage to Catherine, a move forbidden by the Catholic Church. Pope Clement V, under pressure from Catherine's nephew, Emperor Charles V, refused to grant the annulment. Henry's advisors, Cardinal Wolsey, with his furrowed brow, and Thomas More, with his solemn warnings, urged caution. "Sire, you risk God's judgment," Wolsey pleaded in the council chamber, but Henry's mind was fixed on Anne's smile. "I will have her," he growled, his fist slamming the oak table, the sound echoing through Whitehall's halls. The court became a whirlwind of intrigue. Henry flaunted Anne at feasts, seating her beside him as Catherine sat in shadow, her face pale with dignity. He showered Anne's family with titles. Her father, Thomas Boleyn, became Viscount Rochford, her brother a favored courtier. At a summer banquet, Henry, flushed with wine, pulled Anne onto his lap, his laughter drowning out the minstrels as he fed her cherries, his fingers lingering on her lips. "You are my heart's delight," he whispered, heedless of the nobles' glares. Taxes rose to fund her jewels, and murmurs of discontent spread from London's markets to the northern hills, where Catholic loyalty ran deep. Yet Henry, lost in Anne's dark eyes, saw only her, deaf to the warnings of a realm on the brink. By 1530, Henry's pursuit had plunged England into crisis. The nobles, led by Thomas More and the Duke of Norfolk, were horrified. "The Church is England's soul," More argued in the Star Chamber, his voice trembling with conviction. The clergy, bound to Rome, preached against the king's sinful lust, warning of divine retribution. Commoners, burdened by taxes to sustain Henry's lavish gifts, cursed the bullying harlot in smoky taverns. But Henry, clutching Anne's latest letter, a scented note promising a stolen moment, was unmoved. "I am king by God's will," he roared, storming from the council chamber, his cloak swirling. At night, he sought Anne in her chambers, his kisses urgent as he vowed, "For you, I'll defy the world." Anne, ever cunning, smiled, her fingers tracing his chest, binding him tighter to her will. In 1533, Henry took a fateful step, marrying Anne in a secret ceremony at Whitehall. Her gown shimmered with gold, and Henry's eyes devoured her, his heart pounding as he slipped a ring onto her finger. To legitimize their union, he turned to Thomas Cromwell, a sly lawyer who proposed a radical solution: break with Rome entirely. Henry, emboldened by Anne's whispers during a late night tryst, her breath warm against his ear, agreed. "For you, my love, I'll shatter the heavens," he murmured, his hands tangled in her hair. The Act of Supremacy, passed in 1534, declared him supreme head of the Church of England, severing ties with the Vatican. Monasteries were dissolved, their treasures melted into coins for Anne's adornments, ruby necklaces, sapphire rings. More resigned as Chancellor, his face grim. "You court damnation, sire," he warned, but Henry, gazing at Anne across the banquet hall, saw only her beauty. The nation erupted in chaos. In the north, the pilgrimage of grace saw thousands rise under the cross, demanding Catherine's restoration and an end to the heretic queen. Their chants echoed through Yorkshire's valleys, their swords gleaming in the frost. Henry, entwined with Anne in Greenwich's candlelit chambers, laughed off the reports. "Let them march," he said, kissing her throat, his hands roaming her silk-clad form. "They'll kneel to my queen." But the rebellion grew, fueled by the sight of Anne's opulent jewels and Henry's extravagant feasts, symbols of a court drowned in lust. The king's desire had alienated his nobles, enraged his people, and set England's faith ablaze. The year 1534 marked the point of no return. The Act of Supremacy crowned Henry the supreme authority over England's church, a monument to his lust for Anne. In Westminster Abbey, Anne was crowned queen in a spectacle of trumpets and gold, her smile radiant as Henry watched, entranced. He pulled her close after the ceremony, his lips brushing her ear. "You are England's glory," he whispered, his hands bold. But the cost was staggering. The new Church of England was a fragile creation, born of Henry's desire. Bishops who swore allegiance prospered. Those who refused, like John Fisher, faced the axe. Monasteries crumbled, their monks driven into the cold, their wealth funneled into Anne's wardrobe and Henry's feasts. At one lavish banquet, Henry, drunk on wine and desire, lifted Anne onto the table, his laughter booming as he kissed her before the court, heedless of the clergy's glares. Anne bore a daughter, Elizabeth, in 1533, but no son, a failure that gnawed at Henry's pride. The nation suffered too. The Pope excommunicated Henry, branding him a heretic, while rebels in the north seized castles, their banners proclaiming loyalty to Rome. In London, pamphlets decreed the concubine queen, and Catherine's supporters prayed for her return. Henry, sprawled on a velvet couch with Anne, dismissed the unrest. "They'll bow to us," he said, his hand tracing her arm, his voice thick with desire. But the cracks in his kingdom widened, and Anne's position grew precarious. The king's lust had birthed a new church, but it had also torn England's soul apart. By 1536, Henry's passion for Anne had soared. Her sharp wit, once enchanting, now grated on him. Her failure to produce a male heir, coupled with her bold demeanor, turned his love to resentment. Anne, sensing the chill, grew frantic, her laughter forced as she clung to her crown. She tried to rekindle his desire, wearing low, cut gowns and whispering promises in his ear. But Henry's eyes had wandered to Jane Seymour, a quiet, pale lady, in waiting whose modesty contrasted with Anne's fire. One evening, at a courtly dance, Henry ignored Anne, his gaze fixed on Jane as he pulled her close, his hands lingering. Anne's face paled, her hands trembling as she watched her king slip away. Rumors of Anne's infidelity, likely fabricated by Cromwell, who saw her as a threat, reached Henry's ears. In a fury, he accused her of adultery and treason, his voice shaking as he stormed through Whitehall. "You betrayed me," he roared, his once adoring gaze now cold. Anne's trial in the Tower of London was a grim spectacle. The woman who had toppled a church stood defiant, her dark eyes blazing, but the verdict was sealed. On May 19, 1536, she knelt before the executioner's sword, her final words a prayer for Henry's soul. Her death sent tremors through England. Nobles, wary of the king's whims, withdrew their support, while the people mourned a queen who, for all her flaws, had embodied change. The nation was split. Catholic loyalists plotted in the shadows, while Henry's new church struggled to take root. Henry, now wed to Jane, was already pursuing new conquests, his heart unmoved by the chaos left in Anne's wake. Henry's reign became a carousel of wives, each driven by his relentless desire. Jane Seymour bore him a son, Edward, but died in childbirth, leaving Henry to mourn briefly before chasing new loves. At court, his lechery was a constant spectacle. He flirted openly with maids, his laughter booming as he pulled them into dances, his hands bold. "A king must have his pleasures," he jested, his lips brushing a young courtier's neck at a winter feast. His next 3 marriages, to Anne of Cleves, Catherine Howard, and Catherine Parr, were marked by divorce, execution, and survival, each a testament to his fickle heart. Catherine Howard, a vivacious teenager, caught his eye in 1540. He showered her with jewels, his hands roaming at banquets as he called her his rose without a thorn. But her own dalliances led to her beheading, another victim of Henry's volatile desires. By 1547, Henry's health had crumbled. His once mighty frame was swollen with gout, his temper erratic. The court, once a vibrant stage for his passions, was now a place of fear, as courtiers dodged his rages. The Church of England stood, but at a cost. Rebellions had drained the treasury, and Europe shunned England as a heretic state. On January 28, 1547, Henry lay dying in Whitehall, his breath ragged. Alone, he reflected on his life, a parade of wives, each a fleeting flame. Catherine's piety, Anne's fire, Jane's gentleness. Catherine Howard's youth. They haunted him. All for love, he whispered, his voice faint. He died at 55, leaving Edward, a frail boy, to inherit a throne shadowed by division. Henry's lust had secured a dynasty but shattered a nation. Henry VII's reign became a legend, a tale of a king whose heart ruled as fiercely as his crown. His 6 wives, each a victim or victor of his desires, reshaped England. The Church of England endured, a monument to his lust for Anne, but the scars of his reign. Religious strife emptied coffers, and a divided people lingered for centuries. Anne Boleyn's daughter, Elizabeth, would rise to forge a golden age, but even she bore the weight of her father's passions. In London's taverns, ballads sang of the lustful king who defied a pope for love, only to lose his soul to desire. The Tower, where Anne met her end, whispered of his folly, a reminder that a monarch's heart could topple an empire. Henry's legacy, forged in the fires of lust, endures as England's most scandalous saga.